What is going on, guys? We are back for another Sunday scan, this time for the week of November 20th. Yes, the Turkey Day scan is already upon us. It is absolutely crazy, I know. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed a fantastic weekend. Always good to get some time away from the screens, relax, and enjoy some time with family and friends. So again, hopefully you guys all had a great weekend. We are entering Thanksgiving week. First off, I wanted to just go ahead and welcome anybody that's new. First off, this is the Sunday scan. This is the time of the week, every single week, where I create this video going over my top focus setups, watch list, and detailed trade plans for the week ahead. Like I said, guys, Thanksgiving week is upon us, and we are entering one of the seasonally lightest volume weeks of the year, but also seasonally one of the strongest weeks of the year. So we should have an interesting week on tap, guys. We just came off of an extremely choppy week for the S&P 500 last week, guys. That's going to be the first chart that we're covering today. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So if you're following along, guys, I do have the S&P 500 weekly chart pulled up right now. If we come out to the daily chart, guys, you can see that over the past 5 days, and really, like I said, the last week, we spent the better part of this week in a $7 range on the S&P 500, right? So we have that, really strong established resistance at 400, which we couldn't seem to get a candle close over 400 last week. And we really spent the majority of this week chopping in between that 393 and 398 resistance area, right? So that 393 support. Obviously, we have that stronger support at the 390 key level on the weekly, guys. And we, like I said, spent 90% of this week in about a $6 range, right? So really in between that 392 and 398 area, we spent the entire week there this past week. Therefore, we have a very indecisive weekly candle on tap, right? As you guys can see, this weekly candle doesn't give us a whole lot of, confirmed direction, right? We have that very indecisive weekly candle here, guys. And really one of the biggest things that I'm going to be watching for this week, right, is, you keep in mind that we are entering a little bit of a seasonally strong period, but we've talked about that key level multiple times, right? And we did get the close over 395 on SPY on Friday, right? If you guys look at Friday's close, guys, we're going to look at the 15-minute quickly on the S&P 500 here. And like I said, we did close over that 395 area just by the hair of our teeth. And like I said, guys, it was definitely, a pretty important close for SPY on the daily, right? We kind of have that longer, lower wick. And going into the week ahead, we really have a defined range, right? We've got that strong weekly support at that 390 level. And then we've got that much stronger resistance at the 400 level, right? SPY came just shy of its 200-day moving average at that 405 level, and that's where we stalled out this past week. So coming into this week, guys, we can expect to probably see some type of larger move, right? We just came off a long period of consolidation, and we know that after we see long periods of consolidation, oftentimes we see larger moves. Now, one thing I don't want to discount as a possibility is we could very well chop in that same range going into this week as well. We just made a huge move coming off of that prior CPI report, guys. We had one of the largest upside days ever on the NASDAQ, the QQQ. And so coming into this week, really my focus is going to be, again, more hands off and really letting the market kind of show its hand first and then attacking setups from there. So like I said, guys, I don't have any extreme bias coming into this week. When we look at the daily chart, one thing I want to, extend as a possible scenario, right, is if we come back out here and we look towards this very early June timeframe, right? You can see that we actually spent 9 straight days in between that 413 and 404 support area, right? And so if you come down here, right, in between that 404 and 405 area was a very defined support, but we spent, 9 days within this range. And then we saw that massive waterfall move down come mid-June, right? And so one thing I don't want to discount as a possibility is we could very well spend another 3 to 4 trading days in this range between 390 and 402, right? We're going to have very strong resistance at that 404 to 405 level, and that's going to be a major area to reclaim because prior to that large downside move in June, we had some very strong support at those levels, right? So just keeping that in mind, guys, we're entering a lower volume week in Thanksgiving week. this is a week there's going to be a lot less people trading, a lot less volume on a lot of things, and we could very well come to expect that we may see some additional chop going into the week ahead. So like I said, my key levels going into this week, if we come out here on the SPY weekly, right, are going to be that 390 pivot to the downside. Should we see a move below that 390 level, guys, I do think we could see 387 to 386 relatively quick. And I think we would probably see a larger leg down towards this 382.5 area on the S&P. Now, that being said, as long as we are over 390, for me, I'm going to continue looking at primarily those upside setups as it relates to some of the larger cap tech names. And like I said, that 390 pivot is really going to be pivotal as we head into the week. So like I said, guys, I'm going to be watching a possible 390 break to the downside for a move to 382.5. 387 would be that first stop sub that level, in my opinion, guys. You can see we do have some weekly support at that 387.5 area. And so, like I said, if we see a move below 390, I'd target 387.50 first. If we see that move above 400, I think 402 and then 405 would be my logical upside targets above. I think we could even kind of overextend into that 410 area. If we look at the weekly chart on the S&P, guys, we all know this infamous downtrend line. Everybody's kind of looking at it. And if I clear my levels for you guys here, you can really see that downtrend line that we've, started since the top of the market, right, has really held true. And every major relief rally we've seen has been kind of faded off of that area, right? So the more that we look at that, if we were to test that upside range, I really think that would be into that 408 to 410 area. And you can see the top of this prior weekly candle, that lower volume week, at the middle of September, right, 916, that 410 area proved to be very strong resistance. So if we're going to see one more additional upside leg, I think that 408 area is a logical target zone should we see some relative strength coming into this week. Now, guys, my second top setup for this week is actually going to be WMT. Sorry, guys, had to do a quick adjustment there on the volume. We're going to be looking at the Walmart daily chart. WMT is the ticker symbol. This is a pretty typical post-earnings bull flag setup. These setups have been working really nicely lately, especially after stocks report earnings. And therefore, this week, I traded this one on Friday a little bit, guys. Took a lotto off of the open. That printed nicely. The reason that this is my top focus setup, right, is because we've seen these post-earnings bull flags really playing out nicely and providing some nice range to the upside. Obviously, Walmart reported better than expected earnings. We saw that power earnings gap to the upside, retested the 147 breakout level, and then on Friday, we printed a really nice daily candle on relative strength. We talk about that all the time, but looking for names that hold relative strength in this market is very, very important. So if we look at the Walmart weekly, guys, the A-plus setup and trade for me here is going to be a weekly breakout setup towards that 159 area, right? We're breaking over. You can see this prior resistance from August and then again in early November, right, guys? And really what I'm going to be looking at as we come into this week is, can we see a sustained move to the upside through that 150.27 area? If we can break through 150.27, I'm going to be looking for a move towards that 155 area, guys. That was that prior, acted as somewhat support, right? The bottom of that weekly candle, right, here in April of 22. And like I said, guys, as we continue to make that move over 150, I think that's a really nice logical target area. And as you can see, this 150 area has proved to be very strong resistance for Walmart in the past, right? We can look at August of 21, again in November of 2021. And then as we come into right now, we're entering that same area, but with a much stronger weekly candle coming into that resistance spot. So again, over that 150.27 area, the A-plus setup for me here is going to be a break above 150.27. I would look at the 152.50 calls or 155 calls if you'd like to get a little bit further out of the money in terms of exposure. And then, like I said, I would be looking for a move into that 154 zone where we did see some of that weekly support come into play. Now, like I said, we are in a heavier resistance area. So this is going to be a trade that in a more bearish market, I'm going to be looking to size smaller on, as it's a large scale breakout on a higher time frame. We talk about all the time, but when we see breakouts on higher time frames, guys, in this type of market, it's always going to be a setup that I size smaller on, even if the setup has been working nicely on other names. Post earnings bull flag setup with a break to the upside, Walmart is definitely going to be a top focus for me this week. Now, another name that I do think could provide some nice opportunities this week with a similar setup is going to be SE. This is a very similar post-earnings bull flag on the daily. We saw extremely high relative volume on that earnings date, right? And now we've pulled into that support area on the SE daily, right? So if we're looking at the daily chart on SE, you can see that we formed some really nice support here. At this 55 to 56.50 area. This has kind of been acting as that basing level. And if you look at Walmart, SE looks very similar in the sense that it's okay, pulling back after earnings. I actually like this for a long side setup from a risk to reward standpoint. It's kind of sitting at that prior daily candle support area at 56.94. I think that this could provide a nice upside move if the overall market is strong. They obviously reported better than expected results. I think they were up like 34% at one point on the 15th. So like I said, I think that this presents a nice risk to reward setup rather than trading the breakout on Walmart. This could be a nice opportunity off that 56.90 area if that support zone holds off the open on Monday. So definitely another name that I am going to be keeping a close eye on. Now, as we dig into setups a little bit further, we talked about the S&P 500, and this is going to be a very important chart when it comes to the S&P, and that is going to be Tesla. Tesla is probably one of the more interesting setups on the market right now. We are looking at the Tesla weekly chart if you're following along. And the reason that this is such an interesting setup is we have now tested this weekly support twice, right? We tested the weekly support at 178 last week and then again this past week. Now, so what I'm going to be looking at is if you can see here on the weekly, we had very strong support here in March of 2021, again in May of 2021, and then more recently, right, this is the first time that we've really tested this zone since. This tape has been incredibly weak on Tesla. So primarily, I've been looking at this for short side opportunities. On Friday, I did notice for the first time we actually saw a relatively consistent buyer in the tape on Friday afternoon after it tested that 170 area. If we look at the hourly on Tesla, you'll notice that it actually had some relative strength compared to the overall market once it tested 176, right? So it tested that weekly support area, but it really saw a buyer come in on this candle right here. And then we kind of saw it grind up towards that 180 level into the close. So for me, like I said, guys, for me on Tesla, I'm primarily trading this one to the short side due to the relative weakness it has had as of late. So for me, I'd be looking to fade any test of 187 to 190. That's an area that I would start looking at some December puts, actually. This is a trade that I've kind of had on my radar for a while. It does look like it wants to unwind further, but what I'm not looking to do here is jump the gun on the downside at that weekly support. That's a basically 18-month support level that's been holding really strong. So for me, again, not something I'm looking to step in front of. I'd rather, kind of play the retest of old support turning into new resistance. I don't want to pre-exhaust and kind of ruin the setup. I'd rather wait for that retest, get scaled into a position with some time and then trade it from there. So like I said, guys, for me, the reason that I'm looking at this chart so closely is because I think this is going to have a big impact on how the S&P trades, right? Tesla does have weight in the S&P 500 as well as the Qs. And like I said, guys, I think that, coming into this week, if we see Tesla crack that weekly support, that could definitely be a downside catalyst for the overall market, as there's really not a ton of support sub that level. If you look at the weekly chart, really the next major support level is going to be towards that 154 area because the breakout, right, was such a large scale move. So really down into 164 to 157.5 would be that next area of support that I really see. And that would imply basically a $20 move to the downside on Tesla, which would definitely drag the overall market as well as the speculative market along with it. So definitely, a chart that I'm going to be paying very close attention to over the next week, even not so much as from an active trade standpoint, but really a sentiment standpoint as well for the overall market. As you can see, we have that increasing sell volume on the weekly chart. Pulled down a little bit as far as sell volume goes this past week, but definitely still very strong sellers in this tape. As long as Elon is dumping, then we're going to continue to see this name trade very weak. So keep that in mind as we go into the week ahead. Um, Another setup that's going to be on my watch list for this week is going to be TSM. This is a very, very interesting one, and I think one that kind of people have forgotten about a little bit now, and it's going to be one of my top focus setups on the long side coming into this week. Why is that? Well, obviously, most of you know, but the legendary investor Warren Buffett has taken a stake here, a rather large stake as well. And obviously, we've printed two really healthy weekly candles. Obviously, this one is rallying with chip stocks as a whole. The SMH was up, like 30 or 24% over the last month. The reason that this is such an interesting area for me is because I think that if we can crack through this $83 level, I really think that this would offer a pretty nice opportunity, possibly up to this $90 range. After Warren takes a stake, we tend to see those stocks trade with relative strength, especially over the next month, just because there are a lot of people that are going to follow him into that trade. And like I said, guys, I think that if we get over that 83 level, this could be a name that trades a little bit more independent of the overall market. So going into this week, guys, this is definitely going to be a focus for me. If we can get through that $83 level, I think that this will provide a nice opportunity up to the $87.70 area. As you can see on the weekly, that was a nice support area prior to the breakdown. If we look at the daily chart, guys, like I said, this is a very similar setup to Walmart, right? Initial gap up. This time it was on Warren taking a stake. Pulls down, retests, and then goes back to the upside. So I'm going to be looking for a move over 82.94. The A+ setup for me here is going to be a call trigger of 82.94, a break above, and I would be looking at the $85 weekly calls on TSM going into the week ahead. Now, guys, my last and final setup that I'm going to be watching into this week is going to be Netflix. Now, the reason being, this is actually going to be my top short focus setup. Why is that? Well, this is a very ugly weekly candle print here on Netflix. We tested that breakout level above 308, and then that 312 level proved to be a very strong resistance point, and we really saw Netflix trade with a lot of relative weakness as we headed into the end of the week. That is why you will notice on this candle, we noticed a really nasty pattern, right, where we saw sellers really shove this thing to the downside off of that 300 area. We ended up closing under the key support at that 300 psych level and pushed all the way down to 287.98. This is a stock that has run very hard over the past, month, really, since its earnings. And when we look at the daily chart as well, guys, you can see that this one traded with a lot of relative weakness. If we were to see a break below this 286 area, I think we could possibly fade back down towards that 272, if not 270 area, right? And obviously the bigger level was down here at 252. The reason that we sparked that major run was we retested the earnings breakout, and then we just went absolutely nuts over the next 3 days, right? We basically gapped from 254 all the way to 312 in 5 days, guys. So that's basically a 65-point move in 5 days. That is a absolutely insane move for Netflix off of that level, guys. People definitely bought that retest, and I know a lot of people made a lot of money. That was a great swing setup that we talked about for a while. But like I said, coming into this week, with how weak that name traded the last 2 days of last week, coming into this week, if we see overall market weakness based on this Netflix weekly candle, this is definitely going to be a setup I'm going to be honed into on the short side. If we see a break below that 286 area, I really would like to target a move down to 272. As you can see on the daily, price action moves very smoothly through this area. So a break below that 286 level, I'm going to be looking for an A+ setup on the 280 puts. I think that could provide a really nice opportunity to the downside with how much relative weakness we saw this trade with towards the end of the week. And like I said, guys, when you see that weekly candle, which pushes, right, you see sellers really push the body of that weekly candle down. That's a definitely, for me, has historically been a really nice, bearish indicator leading into an A+ short side setup the following week. So like I said, guys, if we do see overall market weakness and possibly a crack below 390 on the S&P, my attention is going to come here to Netflix because I think this is going to offer a really nice opportunity to the downside if we can get under that 286.20 level. So like I said, guys, that's going to be my top downside watch for this week. My watch list and focus setups for the week coming are a little bit tighter. You'll notice I went over 4 to 5 setups where normally I'll go over 7 to 8. The reason being is we are coming into a lighter volume week, and therefore I want my focus to be narrower as well. The biggest thing right now in this market, guys, is if you can hone down your focus to 2 to 3 names that you know you trade well in this type of environment, that is going to lead to more success when it comes to the desk every single day, because your focus is just that much tighter. There's less noise, and really you're just focused on setting those price alerts and then taking advantage. We talk about that all the time, but that robotic nature at the desk is such a huge leg up, especially when we enter a market environment like this. So I hope you guys enjoyed the Sunday scan for this week. Like I said, tighter focus for me in general this week. There's some names that I think are going to offer really nice opportunities, especially as we head into a little bit of a seasonally stronger period for the S&P and for the overall market. Like I said, guys, we are in a totally different market environment right now, so that thesis does not need to hold true. Therefore, I've given 2 of my top A+ setups to the downside, 2 of my top A+ setups to the upside, and like I said, guys, it all comes down to execution. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Sunday scan. Don't forget to leave a comment with something that you took away from this video that was helpful. I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I will see you guys bright and early on the Pre-Market Live tomorrow morning at 9:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace out and have a great weekend, guys.